Yeah. I wish there were easy deals. I mean, I just can't remember the last one. And so this is one of those more difficult, more complex deals. But I think what's great about it is that we could really add value to the situation. So, high level, we had four buildings in and around Flint, Michigan. It was like 40 something thousand square feet. They were all single tenant assets. And so they were leased to a management services organization called Midwest Vision Partners, which is a private equity backed MSO. They're backed by Alpine investors out of San Francisco. And so this is one of the eye care roll-ups that is in healthcare right now. And so their goal is to own and acquire eye care practices all around the country, or in particular in the Midwest, for this particular platform. And so 5 or 6 years ago, the practice had sold to Midwest Vision Partners. So it was originally physician founded and owned. And then at some point in time, they said, look, we need a succession plan. We don't want to continue to operate the business. We just want to be doctors. And so they sold the practice to Midwest Vision Partners. I think that partnership was great. It's worked out for the doctors. We don't have anything bad to say there. But because they were so focused on getting their practice transaction across the finish line, they really weren't paying attention to the leases. And so this is a common pitfall that we see in the M&A world, is that everybody's so focused on the deal that they don't think about the lease. And the leases really can make or break the value and saleability of a real estate asset. So fast forward, and they had only signed 5-year leases, so those leases were coming due. And in fact, the tenant had missed their renewal option. So now it just creates a total renegotiation between the landlord, who was a partnership of physicians, and then the tenant, who is the private equity backed MSO. And so there was no bad will. Obviously, the physician's goal was to ensure the longevity of the practice and continue to have somewhere to work, but also to optimize the assets. At the same time, on the private equity side, they needed all the buildings. They just didn't have leases. And so we were engaged by the physician partnership to come in and restructure the leases to satisfy the goals on both sides. So while we worked for the doctors, we're trying to create a mutually beneficial outcome. So the leases were basically coming due. Again, they were only 5 years to begin with. And so we came in and restructured the leases to a new long-term lease. So we went from 0 years, because they were expired, up to a new 12-year lease term on all four of the assets. At the same time, the credit structure of the private equity backed platform had changed a little bit as the organization had continued to grow. So during that process of the restructure, we really wanted to understand, what did the platform look like? How do the funds flow? Where do the entities sit? Where does the money sit? And so through that process, we determined that it was necessary to secure a guarantee from kind of a higher up entity in the organizational structure to support the credit worthiness of the real estate assets. Now, at the end of the day, it's still a negotiation, and the platform's team needs to make sure that they're getting a deal that's fair market value and is fair, like how it should be. So there was some negotiation, and we were able to structure an allowance package that gave them kind of some near-term savings and ability to upgrade some of the facilities without hitting their P&L or their EBITDA. Obviously, private equity-backed investors are very focused on EBITDA and growth. And so we were sensitive to that. So we were able to craft a solution that allowed us to get new long-term leases that were fair market value, while also making it still worthwhile for the private equity backed MSO. So we went through that lease restructuring process. It was not fast. It may have been 12 or 18 months, just as a result of all the moving pieces and levers. But ultimately we got there. And so once that was completed, the physician partners who owned the real estate said, look, we understand that we have new long-term leases. We think now's a great time to monetize. And we said, we agree with you. So we embarked on a marketing process to explore a strategic sale of the assets. And in our normal course, we conducted a call for offers process, generated multiple offers, and then ultimately worked with the seller/ownership group to identify, hey, who's going to be a good long-term landlord here to help support longevity for the practice, and while it is about the dollars and getting the most money, it was also about finding the right home for the assets to again support the longevity for the practice and create a good landlord-tenant partnership. So in the end, all parties were satisfied. So the real estate buyer, had new long-term leases on the four assets. The private equity-backed MSO had longevity and security that they would be able to continue to occupy these buildings, and they had some extra funds to help upfit the buildings over time. And then the physician partnership, the seller was satisfied because they had newly restructured leases that facilitated optimized value in a sale. So it was a win all around, and while complicated and time consuming, it was quite a rewarding transaction.